My sister sat me down on a Tuesday evening in October, 1 week before my wedding. She had made tea. That detail still stays with me, that she made tea first, like this was something that required sitting down with a warm cup, like the courtesy of a hot drink made any of what followed something other than what it was. She sat across from me at my kitchen table, and she smiled the way you smile when you have decided that what you are about to do is not your fault. "He chose me," she said. "The wedding is cancelled." I remember the exact quality of the silence that followed. Not shock, or not only shock. Something underneath shock, something more foundational. The particular sensation of the floor you have been standing on your entire life, revealing that it was never solid. "Vanessa," I said. Just her name. That was all I had. She kept her eyes on mine. "We've been seeing each other for 4 months. I'm sorry, Rachel. I am. But you deserve to know the truth. My maid of honor. My older sister. My family." She had been meeting Tyler in secret for 4 months, while standing in bridal shops with me and holding fabric swatches up to the light and telling me the ivory one was the right choice. In one evening, I lost the dress and the venue and the man I had loved for 3 years and the sister I had trusted for 31. I sat at that table for a long time after she left. Then I got up and started making phone calls. Before I tell you what happened 6 months later, please take a second to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments what country you are watching from. Now, let's begin. My name is Rachel Morrison. I am 31 years old. And the story I am about to tell you is not a story about revenge. It is a story about what happens when people build their happiness on top of other people's destruction, and what the truth eventually does to the foundation. Tyler Brennan and I had been together for 3 years when he proposed. He was 34, steady, the kind of person who remembered small things: your coffee order, the name of your college roommate, the anniversary of the day your dog passed away. I had believed, completely and without reservation, that I knew who he was. I was wrong about that. But I'll come back to it. Vanessa was 2 years older than me. Growing up, she had always been the one people noticed first. Louder, more confident, the kind of presence that organized itself around the center of any room. I had spent most of my childhood just slightly in her orbit, which I had never minded. She was my sister. That was enough. When Tyler and I got engaged, Vanessa was the first person I called. She cried on the phone. Happy tears, I thought. She said she was so glad for me. She asked to be my maid of honor before I could even bring it up. I said yes immediately. Of course I did. She was my sister. For 8 months, she was present for everything: engagement photos, venue tours, the first dress fitting, the second one, the bachelorette weekend in Nashville that she planned herself. She was enthusiastic in a way that felt real. I never questioned it. I didn't know what was happening in the spaces between. The week after Vanessa told me, I did everything alone. I called the venue. I called the florist. I called the caterer. I called the photographer. Some deposits came back. Most didn't. I folded the ivory dress in its garment bag and put it in the back of my closet because I couldn't decide what else to do with it. Tyler did not call me. Not once. I thought about calling him. I thought about asking for an explanation for the conversation where he would tell me something that made sense of 4 months of hiding and deception. I sat with my phone in my hand more than once. I didn't call. There was nothing he could say that would rearrange what had happened into something I could live with. And I had made a decision, somewhere in those first sleepless nights, that I was not going to spend whatever came next waiting for someone else's explanation to give me permission to move forward. So I moved forward. I kept working. I kept showing up. I rebuilt the routines that had been built around Tyler and replaced them with other things. Early morning runs, a ceramics class on Wednesday evenings that I had been meaning to take for 2 years, dinners with friends I had let drift during the long months of wedding planning. My mother called weekly. She was heartbroken and furious in equal measure, and did not know how to carry either of those things without letting them spill into every conversation. I understood. I let her talk. My father said less. But once, about a month after everything happened, he called on a Sunday afternoon and said very quietly, "You're going to be fine, Rachel. I know that more certainly than I know almost anything." I thanked him and cried after I hung up, and then I went for a run. 6 months passed. Vanessa called me on a Wednesday in April. I had not spoken to her since October. I had not blocked her number, but I had not answered the 2 calls she had made in the weeks after that evening. There was nothing to say. I did not want her apology, and I did not want her justification, and I did not want whatever version of the story she had constructed that allowed her to feel like a good person. When her name appeared on my phone that Wednesday, my first instinct was to let it go to voicemail. I almost did. She called a second time immediately after the first call ended. Then she sent a text that said, "Rachel, please pick up. Something is wrong with the baby. I'm at the hospital." I sat with my phone for a long time. I want to be honest here. My first feeling was not concern. My first feeling was the particular complicated numbness that comes from being asked to show up for someone who dismantled your life with a smile and a cup of tea. I thought about what it would cost me to walk into that hospital. I thought about seeing her face, about seeing him, and then I thought about something else. I thought about the kind of person I was and the kind of person I intended to stay. I got in my car. The hospital was 20 minutes from my apartment. Mercy General on the north side of the city. I sat in the parking lot for 3 minutes before I went in. Vanessa was in a room on the 4th floor. She looked smaller than I remembered, pale and frightened in the way that strips everything else away and leaves only the most basic version of a person. Whatever I felt about what she had done, I was not entirely unmoved by that. Tyler was sitting in a chair near the window. He stood when I walked in and looked at me with an expression I didn't have a word for. Not guilty exactly, but aware. Aware of the weight of what sat in the room between us. I nodded at them both and sat down. The baby had been born 3 weeks early and was in the NICU, with a concern the doctors were still working to fully characterize. The neonatologist had ordered a full genetic panel, standard procedure in these cases, to check for conditions that might explain certain markers they had flagged in the initial tests. Vanessa asked me to come, she said, because she needed family. Because she was scared. I stayed. I didn't know what I felt, but I stayed. About an hour after I arrived, a doctor stepped into the room and asked to speak with me privately in the hallway. Her name was Dr. Patricia Weston. She was calm and direct in the way that good doctors are, the kind of directness that is not cold but that understands the cost of wasting time on softness when clarity is what a person actually needs. She led me to a quiet corner of the hallway. She held a document in her hands. "I need to share something with you," she said carefully, "and I want to do that before we speak to anyone else." She handed me the document. I looked down at it. The genetic panel. The results. I read it twice. Slowly. The second time more slowly than the first. My hands started shaking. Not from shock exactly, from the specific sensation of watching something you couldn't have anticipated arrange itself in front of you with perfect, devastating clarity. The baby's DNA. Tyler was not the father. I stood in that hallway for a long moment after Dr. Weston finished explaining. She was speaking quietly and carefully about what the results meant from a medical standpoint, about the father's genetic information being necessary for certain aspects of the baby's care, about the process of updating the records, about what the hospital's protocol required. I was listening, but part of my mind was somewhere else entirely. Vanessa had told Tyler the baby was his. That much was clear from everything I had observed in that room. The way he sat beside her, the way he spoke to the nurses, the way he had looked at me when I walked in with the particular guilt of a man who believed he had chosen and was living with the consequences of that choice. He believed he was that baby's father. He wasn't. Which meant that during the same months Vanessa had been meeting Tyler in secret, the months she had been my maid of honor, the months she had held fabric swatches up to the light and told me the ivory one was the right choice, she had also been seeing someone else. She had destroyed my engagement. She had built a new life on that destruction. And the foundation of that life was not what she had told anyone it was. I folded the document carefully. I put it in my jacket pocket. I thanked Dr. Weston. Then I walked back to the room. Vanessa looked up when I came through the door. She searched my face the way people search a face when they are afraid of what it might show. She found it. She didn't know the specific details of what I had been handed, but she knew from the way I looked at her, the particular quality of that look, that something had shifted, that I knew something. Her face, slowly and completely, went pale. What I did with that document is the part of the story I thought about most carefully. I did not walk back into that room and put it on the table between them. I did not use it the way it could have been used, as a weapon, as a public unraveling, as the moment where everything Vanessa had built came apart in front of witnesses. I am not saying I didn't think about it. I am saying I chose something different. I left the hospital that evening without speaking to either of them about what I had read. 2 days later, I asked a lawyer I trusted whether I had any obligation regarding the information. The answer was nuanced and legal and ultimately clarified that the hospital would handle the process through its own protocols, that it was not mine to carry. 3 weeks after my visit, Tyler called me. He had found out. Not from me, from the hospital process, from Dr. Weston, from the same clarity that finds everyone eventually when the records are updated and the questions get asked in the right order. His voice on the phone was very quiet. He didn't ask me to say anything or do anything or feel anything in particular. He just said, "I'm sorry, Rachel. For all of it. I'm sorry for what I did, and I'm sorry it took this long for me to understand what kind of person I was being." I listened. I said I appreciated the call. I said I hoped he would be okay. And then I said goodbye and I hung up and I sat in my kitchen, the one with the table where Vanessa had made tea, and smiled, and I felt something I had not expected to feel. Not satisfaction. Not triumph. Something quieter than that. The particular peace of having stayed exactly who you were through something that tried to change you. I don't see Vanessa often. When we are in the same room, holidays, family occasions, we are civil. She is navigating something I don't need to track or measure or judge. That is her work, not mine. The ivory dress is no longer in the back of my closet. I donated it last spring to a nonprofit that gives wedding dresses to brides who can't afford them. I didn't make a moment of it. I folded it in its bag and dropped it off on a Tuesday morning. Somewhere out there, someone wore it on a day they had been waiting for. That feels right. People tell me sometimes that they cannot imagine how I showed up to that hospital after everything that happened. That they would not have gone. That I must have known, on some level, what I might find. I didn't know. But I went anyway because staying home would have made me someone I didn't want to be. Here is what I believe now on the other side of all of it. The people who betray you are not thinking about the long game. They are thinking about what they want right now, and they are willing to dismantle whatever stands between them and that thing. What they never account for is the truth that quietly exists in every choice they make. The truth does not announce itself. It does not send warnings. It simply waits, with complete patience, for the moment when the document lands in the right hands. I didn't destroy my sister's life. She built hers on something that was never as solid as she believed. And on a Wednesday in April in a hospital hallway, the foundation finally showed.